this video, we'll discuss the features on Donald Trump's face that point to being very sharp with the spoken word, as well as his capacity to conserve and dialogue with money well. Enjoy. Hey everybody, welcome back once again. We've got a face reading today, and we're going to be doing Donald Trump. So, last week I did the presidential debate where I read both of the key features I was seeing on Biden and Trump. So if you want to go back and watch that video, I would check that out. There's definitely some insight. That was not a deep dive breakdown of each of their personalities. I do have a separate video of Joe Biden where I've just face read him by himself. And so I'm doing that today with Trump, where I'm going to do a little bit more of a deep dive onto Trump personally, looking at his facial features. But again, if you want to go back up there and revert to last week's video, you can check out the debate between the two of them. So with Trump, he's been asked, people have asked me to read him for a very long time. And given that we're getting close to the election, it's as good a time as any to jump in and read Trump. So I'm going to talk about the dominant features, like I do with everybody, the things that leap out to me where we can see some congruency with his personality, how he operates, what he does. Also, some of the things that have essentially made him successful. So this is the thing. Trump's a very controversial character. A lot of people don't like Trump. A lot of people love Trump. And the thing to remember is that people that are very polarizing like that can have a lot of gravitas in the world. People that are controversial are going to have major impact for the people that they do speak to, and less so, right, in the oppositional impact for people that dislike the person. The point is, whether we like someone or not, or we have a judgment towards somebody or some candidate or whatever, we still can't argue that a lot of people that we don't like become successful in things, and people that we do like become successful. So this isn't a commentary about that per se with Trump. It's just that as I talk about a controversial person like Trump and someone who does rock the boat big time, people are very charged when we talk about someone like this. So I just ask you, stay calm. We're just talking face reading here. Same thing I said in the presidential debate as well. So let's go ahead and jump in and talk about Trump. One of the things that leapt out to me the most, is his eyes, and it's how they sit. So if you look at Trump's eyes, they definitely have this sort of tilt this way, okay? His eyebrows do too. So the eyes do this and the eyebrows do this as well. And if you look at his forehead, the wrinkles even do this. All right, so we want to think when we're looking at a feature and you see it and you're aware of an angling, right, or a shape, and then you see that shape repeat in some other area of the face. In his case, it's times three. Slanted eyes, slanted eyebrows, slanted wrinkles on the forehead. Bam, bam, bam. So when we see that, you want to think that's an implied line or shape repeating on the face. It's like a triple harmonic, right? It's something happening 3 times. 2 is noticeable. 3, I thought, wow, that's interesting that he has these 3. And so what this points to, when we look at the eyebrows, when the eyebrows do this, my eyebrows do this to a degree, but the more they do this, right, the more they do that naturally, the more action-oriented the person is. Now, action can be good or bad. It can also be impulsive, but it can also be very much in the line with, I think, the way Trump runs his businesses. Yeah, that sounds like something I'm going to do. We're jumping in right now. Where do I sign? Like very to the point. And so with the eyebrows like that, we're going to see this action-oriented mindset. So the eyebrows relate to the wood element, has to do with the act of doing, vigor, strength, pushing, closing, all of that stuff. Trump's eyebrows run like this. And again, I think we can see these metrics be evident, and they show up in how he does business. So there's that. Now, the other thing is with the eyes, when the eyes do this, we're going to have it's a metric that, the brow bone and the wood and everything, these all kind of relate to a degree. So there's this action-oriented energy that go with the eyes as well. But when I looked at his eyes, what I found really interesting is the inner canthus. So that's a fire element feature. Anywhere we see wrinkling or points on the face, it's a fire metric. It's something about the fire element leaping out or, standing out. And so with Trump, the inner canthus of his eyes, the way they point in, that pointy, sharp edge with his eyes, that is a fire feature. And specifically, the inner canthus, the more pointy that is, this points to the capacity to be sharp or cutting with words. Now, you can break this down even more depending on if it's on the right side or left side, or if one side is rounded at the inner canthus and one side is sharp. His are both sharp, and his public persona is even more sharp. There's even a really sharp edge there. And when we see that, the way to think about that, you could ask the question, well, why? Why is it that the inner canthus relates to sharp words, the spoken word? The thing you have to remember about the eyes are they're seen as the gateway or the portal of entry to the soul or the consciousness of a person. Now, in 3D reality, how do we do this? How do we convey our ideas and our thoughts? All of it comes from the expression of words. How we take what's on the inside and make it vibrate into the outside world to give it form is through speech. So eye shape and speech are related, okay? The expression of spirit, it's all related, it's all connected. So with that being said, when we see this sharp inner canthus, this means sharpness with words, which I think we can all agree that Trump has a way of being sharp with words. There's definitely something that can happen with Trump where he's willing, for instance, he's willing to roast his political candidates. He goes after Joe Biden on social media. He'll make jokes about, things that, whether you like that or not, or whether you think it has class or lacks class, or it has tact or no tact. The point is that he does it. It's this ability to go after the person verbally. And Trump has no trouble verbally bashing others. He doesn't mind being sharp with his words on social media, in an interview, on the news. That's how he rolls. Now, the other part to this is the thing you need to think about, the kind of the conundrum when we look at face reading is that because his face runs like that, face reading theory also says the person has to use that. They have to use that thing that they carry. Now, again, people could read that about Trump and say, well, oh, that explains why he's sharp with his words. The face reading lens would say, well, he's supposed to be. Form and function relate. This is supposed to be what he's doing. This is kind of the way he's supposed to roll, whether we like it or not. And that's true for any person that we read. So that's just one thing to keep in mind. His eyes definitely do this. There's an action-oriented thing. And as I mentioned in the last video, his eyes squint. And when the eyes squint, okay, we want to think of the eyes a lot like a light beam, okay? When they squint the eyes, the beam gets smaller and it penetrates out. When the eyes open and get wider, we're usually taking things in. So when the eyes are more open collectively in a person, this is why people who have this look and have their eyes open, they look disoriented and shocked. It's almost like an overwhelm of external stimuli when the eyes are a bit larger or the mouth is agape, which I talked about in the video with Joe Biden. When the orifice is open, this is a state of overwhelm, of too much input or difficulty in computing what's happening around us, or the things that are happening around us are traumatic in some capacity. So with Trump, his countenance, his eyes do this, and the energy projects out a lot more. So there's a lot more externalization in terms of how Trump's personality expresses into the world. He looks for things on the outside to either validate, probably, or to invalidate. So all of that being said, the other thing I noticed about Trump was his three sectors. Okay, these three brackets. Now, when we talk about this loosely, okay, we want to think the face has age markers. There's lots of ways to talk about the face. Youth resides at the top, old age resides at the bottom. And so Trump, when we look at this area from the hairline to the eyebrows, okay, this reflects the mental sphere. How that distance, the bigger that is, the more we think things through at the logical level. Then from the eyebrows to the bottom of the nose is pragmatism, the practical energy of how we do things, how we decide on doing things. And then from the nose to the bottom is our emotional and instinctual nature. So the three sectors have a lot to do with doing. They have a lot to do with how our mind processes, but I always use this metric as a means to make decisions. So when we look at Trump's face, the thing that we can kind of break down from face reading is that the thinking things through part, in terms of what he says and what he decides, doesn't have as much weight as the emotional and instinctual. If I were to guess, a lot of Trump's business dealings, how he runs the country, is a lot on just how he feels and probably his instinctual response to things. Then the practicality comes next, and then that logical kind of thinking everything through comes last. Again, you can judge that, take it or leave it, but it's like that's how Trump is supposed to run according to his face. He should run a bit more emotional and instinctual according to his face reading terrain. So, I'm sorry, his facial terrain. So when you think about this, we look at Trump, okay, again, with a polarizing person or a polarizing figure, people are going to say like, oh, well, this explains the things I don't like about him. And Trump has gone very far in life. He's made a ton of money, maybe in unethical ways, according to some. And it is what it is. But the point is, Trump has had success. He's done a lot of these things, and it shows up in his face. The things that he is, he's living. And when we do that, whether we like a person or not, fortune, quote unquote, good things can come to the person. So face reading people's features doesn't mean that you have to like them or dislike them. Okay, I get into this. And the only reason I'm talking about this like and dislike is because Trump is such a controversial character, right? This applies to everybody that I read. Some of you might like a celebrity that I read and or don't like. It's not about liking. It's the person's features can't make you like them. It's more like this is their mechanism. This is how they run. Take it or leave it. Welcome to life. Not everything goes the way we want, and sometimes it goes exactly how we want. Next on the list here is the size of his nostrils. So the nose relates to the metal element. Okay, it's the central mountain of the face. So it relates to technology, creativity, beauty, spirituality, and yes, coins, money, currency, gold, the things that we have used to trade throughout history, right? Metal has that association. So when we see the small nostrils, okay, when a person is looking at us frontally, we want to think small nostrils basically is indicative of how money or coin leaves. So small nostrils, it said in the face reading sphere that people kind of hold their money well. And I would say, Trump has, I don't know what his net worth is, but, homeboy has accumulated a lot of money. And this is very evident in those small nostrils. Now, are there exceptions to the rule? People with large nostrils make a ton of money? Yes, but we want to just understand relationships. Try to think of these things as symbolic representation, and then you've got to read the other features on the face to average out these metrics. That's the hard part about face reading. But he does have the small nostrils, which means conservation of money. The other area is this area called money bags. Okay, so when we have the full cheeks right here, which Trump definitely has, full cheeks, small nostrils, in face readings, like those chances are that person's going to hold money pretty well. And I would say Trump has, given his financial record and whatnot. Now, the other component, the last little bit here that I'll touch on regarding Trump is his fire element. So Trump does, he makes a lot of faces. So, he does the goofy faces and he makes people laugh, again, whether you like that or not. But Trump is seen as funny to many, and sometimes in a way that's like, oh my God, I can't believe he said that. Other people just love him because he's funny. But he does make a lot of facial expressions, and he does have some sizable wrinkling show up, and he's willing to contort his face. So people that mimic, imitate, that make a lot of facial expressions, this is a marker for fire, because fire adapts and changes quickly. So Trump does do this, and as I mentioned in the last video, the presidential debate one, he does have these joy lines, which means Trump does like what he does, but he's also got the excessive fire mark that kind of run up into the temples, which is indicative of impulsive or manic thinking sometimes. So he carries this as well. But these are the big key features that I saw on Donald Trump. I could read him a lot longer. With any of these people, when I'm doing a face reading, I could dive in for a very long time. But these were the key things that leapt out to me. And I will say, in terms of lifestyle guidance, like if I was working with Trump and he were a client, the thing that I would be working on with Trump at the most rudimentary level is the reduction of earth. Okay, and earth is just extra adipose tissue. The thing that we want to think about is, I am not of the mind where we are in this, I guess what they call the body positivity movement. I don't think there is health at every size. I really don't. And I think when we have more adipose tissue on the body, more fat, which they call in the functional medicine circles, they call fat the organ of inflammation, we don't live as long. That increases our chance of high blood pressure, inflammatory cholesterol disorders, heart disease, diabetes. Everything goes up. It's harder on our joints. When we have extra adipose tissue, which is what extra earth is, Trump carries extra earth. The thing that I would be getting Trump on is I would get him onto a ketogenic or paleo diet. I would get his inflammation response down too, because collectively, any of us that are inflamed, inflammation does not just relate to the tissues of the body, it also relates to the mind, because the mind and body are not separate. When we have extra weight, and I'm speaking from experience, I used to be 100 pounds heavier than I am now, and my thought processes, my body, how I responded, everything was more inflamed. It's not just your tissues. Again, the mind and body are connected. So I would want to get the inflammatory processes down in Trump's body. I would want to get him down a solid 50 or 60 pounds to where his body was less inflamed, and then, seeing how that treated his life force, if that moderated things, because when we feel better too, we operate better in the world. It's true for any of us. I behave and operate better having lost 100 pounds without question. Everything is better. So in any case, that's what I got for Donald Trump. If you got questions, feel free to post them below. Thanks for your time as always.